Well, this is going to be hopefully the final, but at very least part 3 of this horrible Corvette scenario. I'm going to try and patch up as much as I possibly can today, and as quick as I can. There was quite a bit on that thing, and that tensioner really kicked my butt last night. I'll get started on the tensioner, get that finished up, and then share with you what I did. And then we'll go on to whatever the next project is. That way I don't waste too much time in video in farting around with that tensioner that's been kicking my butt. So that's where we sit now. I got the tensioner thing working. It is working properly. But I remember last night I commented on when I tightened the tensioner, I noticed this thing seemed like it was moving. I figured out why that is. You notice this valve cover's off. That was just so I could access this bolt, by the way. A little side note. But I figured out why that is, why this appeared to be moving. It is moving. There is something wrong, and it does not have to do with the lack of bracing like I had originally talked about. I was thinking maybe it didn't have enough bracing because there's nothing on the bottom here. I didn't mention the bottom part, but there is nothing on the bottom. There's just one brace here, and then this heavy brace over on this side, and that's pretty much it. So it doesn't have very good bracing as compared to most units. However, it's not the bracing that's at fault. Believe it or not, big surprise, the guy who worked on it last. So I'll get you over here and I'll show you where he failed horribly once again. I'll give you a look here, show you what's going on. I'm going to leave you on the stand first, because I want to show you the shake that's happening, the part that was concerning me. So if I grab right here and I pull up and down, you're actually going to see where I was concerned. I'm going to get you a little bit closer here. Okay, so the spot that you're going to watch is right here. I'm going to pull up and down on the nose of the supercharger, and this gap is bigger than it should be because there's actually a gap right in here. This is the part that's supposed to be flush against it. You can see this little raised spot right here. That's supposed to be flush against there. It's not flush. He left it loose is the main problem, but there's a reason he left it loose, and he neglected to take care of the actual problem. So I'm going to go ahead and wiggle this quick. So you can see how that whole thing moves there. It's not much, but it's definitely enough to raise concern. This guy said that the belt actually stayed on and had no problems, which I find surprising. The only thing I could think of is that maybe that's because it moves so much that it just centered itself. I mean, I don't know, but it's pretty disgusting that this thing is in as bad a shape and so many things are as loose as they are. It's no wonder that he only made 500 miles before the car had a problem. The original problem, which was the clutch switch blowing a fuse, taking out an ECM fuse and obviously the clutch switch fuse. For some reason they're intertwined together. I'm not sure what that's about. But this thing is just insanely bad. So I'm gonna keep going on it here. I'll get this thing apart, figure out what's going on. Oh yeah, that's right. I was gonna show you why those are loose. Shove this light down in here. See if I can get it down in there decent. Okay. So you see that bolt right in the center of the screen. That is a bolt. Although the center is destroyed looking, that is a bolt. It's just he stripped out the Allen or whatever it is in there. I think it's an Allen, but I'm not totally positive. You can see the bolt below it. He must have stripped that one out and replaced it with one of those goofy ones that he has. I don't know where he got those things. Those things are weird looking. Then we have, see the one right behind the pulley there is missing. So there's nothing in that one. The one, there's 3 holes there. The one on the bottom, the head is stripped out. The one on the middle, I don't believe is a bolt hole, but I'll find out. The one on the top is missing its bolt. Then we go above that bracket, and there's another one right there. Now the head of that bolt is starting to strip out, but I think there might be something remaining there. So we'll see if I'll be able to get that out. But he pretty much wrecked every single thing holding this thing together, and I'm going to have to try and salvage it. So that's where I'm going to go next. I'm going to pull this bracket. There's one bracket back there. I'm going to pull that off. That way I can pull this whole assembly off of here and then start getting at those little bolts that are all loose and not properly attached. So I accidentally skipped a little bit of recording. But I just pulled I was just trying to figure out the map, or the harness here, how I can get it out of my way. There's a bolt I have to get at here. So I was working on that, and I can get at the bolt now, or the nut. But I had to pull out the map sensor, right? And I loosened the tensioner, pull out the map sensor, and to my surprise, there was no seal on the map sensor. So I'm going to have to put a seal on there. I don't even know if I want to put it in. Wow. This thing fall out and grind against something? It's all broken. Oh boy. I'll have to figure that out here in a little bit, but I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to have to contact the customer on it, but I don't know how well you can see this. But you see there's no seal here. Right here, there's, I don't know, ground down, chewed up, destroyed. Maybe it hit the belt, fell off, hit the belt or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. These little tabs are supposed to be like a little surround here, I think, that the hook goes into and snaps into place, and that surround is supposed to like brace it. At least I believe so. I'll have to look at another one. Should have one in the back somewhere. But this map sensor does not look right. It's pretty beat up. Alright, so I got this map sensor figured out. Ooh, sorry about that. Stepped on a line. Alright. There we go. So you can see how beat up that thing is. But I found these two O-rings. One is a little bit smaller, so it creates kind of a taper. But as soon as it hits that second O-ring, I could feel it like into place, you know, just kind of pop into place. So I know that second O-ring is sealing. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in like this for now. Okay, I'm going to bring this over to the back and then bring you back there too. Alright, so I just brought this back here. I did not do anything with it other than clamp it into this vise and turn the vise a little bit. So I'm going to take a look here, see what exactly we're up against. Ooh, there's some nasty filth inside that thing. Let's do a little wiggle here and see what I can... Okay. Uh-oh. Yeah, so I'm just going to take this bolt out, I guess. That's the easy one. Let's see, what else do we have? This one should come out easy if I can get a hold of it, although it's stripped out. Looks like they were Torx bits. I'll be putting some Allens in there. You can see these two are missing. This one I was correct. It does not have any threads behind it. This one is all beat up. I'm going to see if I can pound a Torx bit in there in order to pull that out of there. That one's a little tight, so we'll pound that sucker in there. Well, it's tight enough that I need a wrench. But it wasn't very tight. Didn't take much effort. Which, in this case, is a good thing because I can actually get it out then. So that's kind of nice. Not supposed to be like that, but I'll take it. Finger tight, a little tighter than that at least. Give it a shot. Didn't take very much. think it's loose. Yeah, it's loose. Alright, so what I'm going to do now that I got it fully loose, I'm going to take and find bolts for these and thread some good bolts in there that I can actually tighten down. So I've come up with a solution for this. It's not perfectly ideal, but it's a lot easier than me cutting up a bunch of bolts to make it to length or waiting for an order to come in that are, of bolts that are the correct length. I would have preferred to have these Allen head bolts and have shorter versions. I could cut them down, sure, but the truth of the matter is there is enough room for clearance to have the heads sticking out of here a little bit. So I just threaded a nut on here and then tightened it down, and now I'm just going to thread these guys in, and it ends up sitting out just a little bit, and there's plenty of room. I did try this one already, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to thread these ones in here and then take these last two that he had in there out, and then put those guys in place too. Okay, so I just noticed a little interesting tidbit. I gotta go find another bolt. This one in here that had that goofy head like his other bolts, his other ones were somehow a 8mm by 125mm, so it's a metric. This one is a standard. It's a 3/8 by 16 with the same size head. I don't know what's up with these bolts, but he's got apparently an arsenal of these goofy things. So I'm gonna replace this with hopefully an Allen head. I think I have one. Stainless version, and then I'm going to get all these tightened down. That way this thing will not come loose on him again, or for the first time. I guess it didn't officially come off completely, but it sure as hell would have eventually. That definitely was not okay. Okay, so I found one here. It's same thread, pitch, everything. It's almost shorter. It's like just a hair shorter. So I'm gonna thread this guy in there, and then we'll get this thing back on the car. I might actually clean it out a little bit. We'll see. I'm not sure why. I decided to check these guys quick. Just these little bolts that hold the compressor housing to the actual gear case, and I decided to check those bolts, and all of them were okay except for this one. For some reason this one was not even finger tight. I wouldn't think he'd have any reason to pull that off. That just might be coincidence, but who knows with this guy, whether he did something with that or not. Maybe he had to index it, I don't know, but one of them was loose, so I just wanted to make note of it. Okay, it's all bolted up. I did not tighten the belt yet. I just grabbed this thing and did a little wiggle, and it's definitely better. It takes a lot more force to move it, but it does still move a little bit. I'm going to let it go because at least I know it's not going to fall off, and it's not going to cause any serious issues. It should hold up just fine. Now this guy had mentioned his AC just the other night when I talked to him, that his AC wasn't working correctly. He didn't think it was working. So I'm going to go ahead and check the AC here quick. I got a set of gauges, and I'm going to let you see what's involved in the process of checking air conditioning. So you can see the gauges have some in it right now, according to that. That is from the previous car. Right now in the garage it is 66 degrees, so we got 66 degrees in the garage. If this system is full, as soon as I hook the or open the valve up, it's going to show about approximately 66 psi in here if the system is full. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to show you me opening the valve. There's the valve right there, that green, wow, the blue thing right there. So I got to turn it to the right, Now, there's a small little flow of air there. I'm going to show you what happened. Go up to here. It's almost at 0. So this system is completely empty, and that is why it does not work. Now, perhaps when he did the motor, he disconnected the AC. I usually avoid disconnecting the AC just simply because it's a lot easier for me to not have to recharge the system. He may have forgot to recharge it. He may have neglected to recharge it, knowing him. But who knows? I'm just going to go ahead and charge this thing up and get it working. But before I charge it, the first thing I'm going to do actually is take an air nozzle and just add pressure to it. If it leaks like crazy, we'll know right away. And I'll have to replace the receiver dryer along with fixing the leak, because if it's been exposed to the outside atmosphere for too long, there's going to be too much moisture in the system, and the moisture will damage things. So the receiver dryer can only absorb so much moisture, and if there's too much of it in there, it has to be replaced. If it's been open, it has to be replaced because you can't risk how much moisture might be in there. I'll get pressure on this thing, and yeah, I can use right there. And we'll verify whether it holds or not before I pull a vacuum and fill this thing up. I'm going to go ahead and add some air to that quick. Okay, so I hear a leak. This gauge should be dropping. Yeah, it's dropping, but it's dropping slow. So I'm going to find that leak quick. Sounds like it's in the front of the car. It's probably the AC condenser or the fittings that go to it. I found the leak. I'll bring you over there. So the clamp, the boost clamp that's on here, because of this radiator, AC condenser being so floppy in here, you know, I can just move things away. Right here. You hear that? So that's where the leak is. So this guy needs a new AC condenser, but at least now we know where the leak is. He needs the condenser, obviously. So I guess that concludes that. I won't have to charge the system up. Now this car has almost straight water in it. There's very little antifreeze. I noticed it kept evaporating off of the floor, which tells me there's like no antifreeze whatsoever in here. I'm going to suggest to the guy that he does a cooling system, you know, coolant flush or whatever. But my concern is I don't want to do it now, just in case the car is already getting hot. It has a factory radiator in it. It may or may not be enough radiator for the car, so the cooling system, the amount that it had drained out while I was working on it, I'm going to add that much, and we'll see what happens when the car gets running again. Make sure it doesn't have an overheating concern. What I did, that was actually straight antifreeze. That was not like a 50-50 mix or something, so it's nice and strong. It's still not going to be even close to the 50-50 recommended mix. So before I go ahead and attach all this stuff, I wanted to show you guys a quick after I work on it picture of what's going on here. So you see that harness has been moved. You can also see where there's a ground on the top bolt hole, and there is the bracket for the wiring harness on that bottom bolt hole, like it should be. You have a little bit of wire conglomeration going on there, but it's not close to interfering with anything, so that's a lot better. What else? That motor mount before, I don't know if I covered this in the video or not, but that motor mount, that bolt was actually loose, like that washer could spin freely, so I snug that up. Now that is a urethane bolt through bushing, so it's kind of like a solid mount, but not. It allows forced flex in the down position. It does not allow flex in the up position. So it reacts like a solid mount, but it's not a solid mount. I don't know how else to describe it. It's got just a little bit of squish. You're supposed to tighten those bolts down a certain amount, and not to squish the bushing, but enough that it holds pressure against the bushing. So that's where it's at right now. I got all the wires, spark plug wires, off of here right now. You see, that's for the wiring spark plug, you know, the coil harness. I still have to hook that up. It's obviously against the header. That's not okay, but it'll be different once I hook it up. So there's that. We have back here, I don't know if I'll be able to get you a good glimpse of that here. My floppy, half-broken light. Okay, so you can see that silver fiberglass coated, you know, heat shielded thing back there. That's actually the clutch line. So that's the pressure feed line. The other line that actually looks kind of reddish in this video, and then it has that black spot next to it. The tip of the light is actually pointing at it right now in the video. So right there. See if I can get a better light up of that. There we go. Okay. So that line right there, that's for the bleeder. Now if I go like this, you can see there's a huge gap there. So there's no way that's going to heat up anymore. It's not at all close to that header any longer. The harness is way far away from the header. It's not even close. Now the oil cooler lines, on the other hand, see if I can get a good view of it. From this view, they look like they're pretty close. So we'll see where they're sitting as far as underneath the vehicle. But I think they're far enough away that it's not going to be even a close issue. I got the other ground, if I could see it. See that ground? Oop, come on, focus. There we go. See the two ground wires going up to that shiny stainless bolt? Those are quite a ways away from the harness there, or the header there. Those were the two wires that previously were bolted up to that last header bolt, which I can't see. So they were grounded there, now they're not. The header is tight. That steering shaft is reattached, the cover is back over it. So this is interesting. I got a bolt here that is kind of like the bell housing, or not bell housing, torque tube. The torque tube situation that he did, where he replaced it with a bolt that was far too long, and instead of finding the correct length bolt, he just put a huge spacer in its place to take up the gap, and it sticks way out and just looks retarded. So I'll go ahead and take these bolts loose, and this bracket for the power steering off. I might as well, since there's two bolts holding that, and I'll show you what he did versus what length bolt is supposed to be. So this bolt right here is the correct length. The bolt that you can't see, I doubt, hiding behind the light and all that crap there, has the giant shim on it. And I'll show you what that length bolt is versus this one here. That one I would assume is actually an alternator bolt, and he just moved it over there out of, I don't know, stupidity. As far as I'm concerned, stupidity. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those off. For real? Okay. I'm going to continue pulling this bolt off, but I just added more to the project. He had two bolts holding this bracket on. There's supposed to be four. He did have those two bolts tight, which is the only reason it didn't move. But this power steering pump is going to have to come off in order for me to add the other two bolts, because they sit behind this pulley. So he took the time to put the pump on, never took the time to put the bolts in first. So here we go. We'll pull this off and I'll show you. Here is the bolt that I was referring to. Now, you can see that it's, you know, I'm hiding it right now on purpose. Here's the bolt that's supposed to go in there, okay? There is the bolt that was in there. So he's got this giant shim so that it can make up for the length. And these are the only two bolts holding the power steering alternator assembly on there. This work is so bad, so bad. There's no excuse for such horrible work. I just noticed something else too. I'm going to have to maybe address this belt. The edge of it's chewed up. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. See what I come up with. Here's the belt. I don't know if you can see it or not, but the edge, just watch this edge, is all feathered and chewed up. So this edge here is in good shape. So I'm going to have to figure out what's causing that. Well, it just never ends. I'm going to come grab you and show you what I found now. So you remember that wire I had to fix for the cam sensor on the last episode? This one is the... So here is... Oh, hang on, I'm going to hide that from you until I get there. So there is the connector and the wire that I fixed, right? So it goes up to this connector and then the wire comes through here. Now notice all this tape. What's up with all that tape, right? Well, this wire is insanely long, okay? So he added a long wire there for no reason. I'm not sure what the hell that's there for. But that's not the problem. Here is the problem. Right here. Oops, I don't know if I can... I have to get a little more light on that. This is terrible. There we go. Alright, so right there. You see that? That is an exposed copper wire. It was rubbing on something. On top of that, he had this harness pinched between that bracket that wasn't properly bolted on, so I'm sure that bracket was sitting crooked. That might actually be the source of why the belt was wearing uneven. I'm gonna pop this cam sensor off of here. I'm gonna pull the connector that I fixed the wire on off of there and pull this out, okay? And we'll take a look at this once and see how horrible of a job he has done in the repair of this wire, or the extension of this wire. I have this strange suspicion it does not look good behind that plastic tape. Yep, okay. So, obviously there's a splice here too. And he had electrical tape around it. Not heat shrink tubing. This looks like it was a cut at one wire. And where is the wear spot? There it is. Here's the worn spot. So that's the spot where I discovered, and it's worn through. And that happens to be on the same wire here. So he fixed the problem without fixing the source of the problem. He didn't learn his lesson. The first source of this problem is, why do you need an extra foot and then bundle it up so it's like this and rubbing against everything? Why do you need that when you had it like this in the car, bundled up? It's pretty much the same length as stock. Why give it an extra foot? On top of that, his connections here. This is electrical tape. I don't know if he soldered it, that'd be at least halfway decent there. He did solder the one joint. Okay, so it's soldered. So at least it's soldered. That's not as bad. That one's soldered. This one actually has heat shrink tubing. It's not adhesive heat shrink tubing, but it's heat shrink tubing. I'm able to slide it down. So there's that joint. This thing, ooh, wow. This wire's about to break. There's barely anything holding it on right here. This side, I'm sure it's the same. Same shit. So I'm not even going to bother. It's not worth it. There's one. Yep, soldered. So there's two solders, or all soldered, I'm sure, but two electrical tapes and one heat shrink. Let's see if that heat shrink is on the orange wire here. Heat shrink on this one. Pretty sure that's the orange wire, and I'll just follow it. Oh, that's also the one with the broken and worn spot. So it is this guy here. Yeah, so he used heat shrink on one wire, and then he used electrical tape on the other two. And that's the sensor wire. I'm pretty sure the middle one's the sensor wire. The other two are the 5 volt and the ground. But I'm pretty sure I have one of these not so long connectors in my arsenal of old parts. I'm gonna go dig for that now. Hopefully I can just replace this with something that's not so junk. It's in here. You might not be able to see it, but if I move just right, you'll see it right there. So, pull this guy out. This is a factory setup. Normally this bolts up like this, and the crank pulley kind of rides right along here. This goes into the cam sensor. That end goes into that connector. I am unable to use this metal bracket on a car like this. There's an aftermarket pulley kit that doesn't allow it. So I'll cut this piece of tape, pull that out, and then find a different way to mount it. But I like to keep these because of that scenario, just like this. You never know what somebody will do. Okay, so the way I'm gonna have to do this, I have a car, one of my customers that has a pulley system just like this. There's a little triangular shape opening that this wire will fit through, but the connector ends won't. So I'm gonna pull one connector apart, shove the wires through, then assemble the connector while it's under there, and then plug it into the cam sensor and the other connector that is by the block there. So I have two different sets of these electrical connector pin disassembly kits, whatever the heck you want to call them. This one's the individual set. I also have the two that are like a little, it's a goofy looking disc with things coming out of it. It looks like some kind of weird throwing star. These do not work on this particular connector. They have one of the smallest deals in order to take it apart. So there's a little spot here. You gotta pull the back off, which I already did. There's a little spot here, and I take this needle. These T-pins, they come in handy big time for electronics. When it comes to diagnosing cars, you can back probe with them and hook a clamp to it, whatever. But I take them and I sand down so that they have a flat side. If you look, you can, I don't know, well you can see that, but it's got a flat side there. You're probably not focused. It's got a flat side. It's skinny, flat. Hopefully that's working on the camera there. I'm not watching, but it's got a flat. And I do that so that I can take it, shove it in here, it fits, and in order to get these out you have to push the connector in further first, then push on the pin. There's a little bit of a click there, and then I can pull back on it. So there's one pin that I already did. I'm going to do this one now. There's the other one. Now I got to do this last third one. I'm going to push it in, tab. Sometimes you got to wiggle it. You don't always release right away. Let's see here. I'll reset the pin just in case. There we go. Now it's out. Okay. So before I do anything else, I'm going to take and make note of the color code in the order of which it was. So this is away from me. Okay. And we got orange, orange black, and I think it's a brown white. Wait, that's actually red. So red, orange, black, brown, white, with tab facing away from me. Okay, so here's where we sit. We have this guy going through that little triangle shaped hole, right? And then we have the other connector over here. This guy is going to connect to it. And then that little purpled end is going to go up where the cam sensor is. You can see that off on the left. It's kind of a tan colored sensor. So I'm going to plug that in, and then I'll bring you right back. Okay. Now you can see that I have, now I'll get a little more light on it for you. There we go. You can see it's connected right there into that cam sensor. Then we go over here, and you can see, move that out of the way. See where that wire runs? It does not come across the belt at all. It goes into that little triangle hole. And then the connector is right there, right on the top by the bolt hole there. So everything's connected the way it should be, and we're not going to have an issue. Surprise, surprise, something had to be corrected. Wow. So I was just going to remove the power steering pump. There's normally a little bracket that holds these things in place on top of the 2 bolts that hold it in, because there's normally, these pumps are designed for a 3-bolt hole thing, and I'll show you what I'm talking about after I get the pump out of the way here, or the bracket out of the way here. But basically there's only 2 bolts holding it in, and I don't have a bracket to put in there, so I guess I'm going to leave it like that. It shouldn't hurt anything. This belt doesn't have much tension against it because it's only for the power steering and alternator with this setup. So I don't think it's going to affect anything or have any kind of issue. If this belt was also being used to drive a supercharger, then I would be concerned, but it's not. So we're going to leave it like this, except for I got to get this bracket bolted on properly, obviously, so I have to pull the pump off for that. Well, that confirms my earlier comment. So you remember me talking about this thing being almost like it was vulcanized to that fitting there? Well, this hose is a little soggy, and there's a reason for that. Come back here and you can see it must be like a heater hose. So it's not an oil capable hose, which is why it's so nasty and screwed. I'm glad I got the replacement hose here. I'll be putting that in shortly. But see, there's 2 bolt holes in the back here that go all the way through. They mount right there, okay? You see the pump sits here, and then the 2 bolt holes go here. Now this hole is for a 3rd spot. So there is normally, if I can get this up high enough, you can see right here is one of those long bolt holes. If I move this over, you see that other tab there? That tab is for a bracket. So this little bracket is like a triangular shaped thing. It goes from here with 1 bolt to here where that other bolt hole is, and then it goes over here. So it's like a triangular shaped deal, and it's got 3 holes in it. And that's normally to brace onto here. It does not have that. I'm going to actually leave it alone. I don't think it's going to have any kind of issue without it. But here are those 2 bolt holes that we're missing. The pulley sits like this, so you can't do these unless you pull the pump off of here. Obviously, he had the pump off. He had to pull these out. He must have put the pump on first and then put these 2 bolts in, realizing that he had these off of here, and said, those will hold it, even though the bracket is massive and those 2 bolts are only on one end of the bracket. Not a very safe way to hold that bracket in place. So now I will degrease this pump a little bit and all the oil I spilled, and get the correct hose on here, and then continue on with this whole process. In fact, oh, look at that bolt right there. It's not loose. Sure doesn't look like it's down all the way though. I'm gonna grab an Allen quick and see what that is doing. Okay, so I grabbed the ratchet. I got it on loosen right now. Let's see if I can do this on camera. Okay, I'm not gonna push hard on it. Oh, okay, I'm pushing a little harder. Okay, it was somewhat tight. So it wasn't completely loose. I thought I might have caught something there. But apparently not. I do see something else though that intrigues me. I'm going to tighten this down and then go to that. Boy, I'm able to tighten a lot more than it was. Holy cow. There it is. So it wasn't fully tight, but it was at least tight enough to not fall off. Oh, I see why that bolt doesn't work. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Let's go down there for you and get you some light too. That's why that bolt doesn't seem right. That's a tapered fitting and that's a non-tapered bolt. I didn't even look at that close enough. So he had to drill and tap that hole. I had to do that on another one that wasn't intended for this bracket. It was an LSX block, I think. It didn't have the hole there, or maybe it was a iron block just like this one, a regular iron block. But yeah, if you have to tap that hole, you have to get rid of the taper. The one that I did, I ended up using a milling bit and cutting it flat. I guess what I'll have to do is just take and, I don't know, maybe I'll just put a big bolt and washer on there in hopes that I can have enough clearance to still, because that thing sticks out pretty far. Maybe I'll have enough clearance to still get the bracket on there. I'll have to try that out here and see. Get back to you on that. Okay, so I pulled that bolt out. You can see I got a mirror in there that I'm looking at right now. The threads are really messed up in there. And if you look at the spot closest to the handle into the mirror there, the part of the aluminum, it's all hogged out funny. So they couldn't get the bolt line up, they hogged it out funky. The threads are really goofy. I don't know if you could see that. There's like a spot where it just stops. So the reason I ended up having to stick a mirror in there was actually because of the bolt that I pulled out versus what I wanted to put in. So I pulled this guy out. Oop, there we go. You see the depth of the threads here? See if I can show you this. Come on. So it was in there down to about that thread where my nail is in. So it didn't have very many threads holding it in place, and this was cutting into the aluminum, which is the only reason that it didn't seem like it tightened correctly. And it was only doing it on one side, so I was forcing it to go in and then tweak a little bit and bind, and that's why it didn't come loose. Now what I want to put in there was this bolt, right? Well, this bolt is a lot longer, okay? So I wanted to put that in there and then have the washer sitting over top of the aluminum. That is the same thread and pitch, but for some reason when I put it in there, it would, there goes the light teetering away. So I start it, I can turn it a few turns, right? And then it just comes to a dead stop. Okay, so that dead stop bothered me. So I went to look in there, and I noticed they didn't have the correct threads all the way through. I'm gonna dip you down in there, see if we can see what we need to see. Okay. So you see how horrible those threads look? They are not looking right at all. Yeah, they don't look good, but they need to be addressed. So I'm going to run a tap in there and see if I can clean them up. It doesn't look like it's a helicoil. It looks like it's just damaged threads more than anything. So I'm going to go ahead and try and clean them up quick with a tap. It's a 10 by 1.5. See if I can get a bolt in there all the way. If I can, great. If I can't, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I could put the old one back in and just warn him. But hopefully, and I should be able to get those threads cleaned up. So we'll see here. Okay, so I got the threads cleaned up quite a bit. Oh, well, you can see that. I'll put the phone down there too. But you can see they're actually clean and they go really deep down in there. So I'll go ahead and put the phone down there. There you go. See how the threads go plenty deep now, and they're a lot cleaner than they were before. You can see the rough spot from the original. If I can get it to focus. See if I can do that. There, you can see the rough spot from the original, and then where my tap cleaned it up and made it a lot deeper than it was. So it's in a lot better shape now. I should have no problem threading the bolt all the way down in there like it should be, and then it'll actually be held on appropriate instead of having such a risk of coming apart. So I had to pull that back out. I was trying to get all the bolts to line up, and imagine that it doesn't line up. So normally a person would clearance for that pulley where I had to put the, run the tap through to clean out the threads and make it so I could actually tighten it down decent. Normally you have to clearance this bracket for that. Well, this guy did not. So you see, come on, there we go. Okay, right here. There's a kind of a mushroomed spot there. Oops, come on, come on. So right there is where it's hitting the pulley bracket. So I gotta take and grind this down. Now normally they also hit here, and it looks like something was hitting there, so I'm gonna grind that down a little bit too. And I'll be right back. Okay, so here is the first attempt at making it a little bit more room. I just did some sanding on it, so we'll see how that fits. I am going to be calling it a night for tonight, at least for now. I might work a little bit later tonight after family time is over. I got some family time to spend. But I got a substantial amount done, not at all what I had planned. But that's kind of how it's been going with this car. I was hoping this would be the final episode of this particular vehicle and all its problems. But obviously there's going to have to be a part 4. I didn't want there to be. I don't like making these long, drawn-out processes with these long, drawn-out videos. I want to make them shorter and quicker and easier for you to follow. But some of them are just that tough and take that much time, and I've been getting a lot of those jobs lately. I did have a short opportunity today for one, but I left it alone. It was a 2015 Nissan Murano. I thought it was going to be quick and easy because the customer had assumed that it was one oxygen sensor that I had to replace. And the oxygen sensor that they were thinking, they just didn't have the wrench with the funky angle to get at it. So I have this specialty O2 sensor wrench, and it can get in some weird places that other wrenches cannot. So I thought, well, I'll get it, no problem. It would be a 10-minute job. Well, I was looking at it. They said bank 1 sensor 2, and they said, oh, it's right here, because I was trying to find it and I didn't see it right away. And I go, no, that's not it. That's bank 2 sensor 2. And I go, are you sure? I go, I don't know. So I looked up on top of the hood and looked at the motor, and I looked at the diagram, and I looked around, and sure enough, I was right. Bank 1 sensor 2 is in the back of Nissans, and that sensor on that particular Murano is above the exhaust, between the axle and the engine, but really close to the transmission. It's almost impossible to get at, and there's a loop on the exhaust that comes around and blocks it. So it ended up being an hour-long project. So I had to do that outside. Now I'm kind of beat because I was crawling around on the ground doing that, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I did it for years, but now I'm spoiled. So I like to stay spoiled. It's much easier doing it this way. I make more money and I do it comfortably. Doing it on the ground, there's nothing wrong with that if that's all you have for an option. But once you get a hoist, once you get a place to do it, it's much, much better, and you'll enjoy the job a lot more. But I did that job unrecorded. Kind of wish I would have did some video on that to show you the process of replacing one of those sensors. But I didn't, so it is what it is. Like, share, subscribe, and then of course the video after this one will be up there when it finally does show up. I'll make sure I keep going at it and keep these videos coming for you guys. Hopefully I can get some shorter, easier ones, some nice easy ones to follow. Maybe I'll even link my wife's Ford. So I had an interesting noise. That was a nice short little video. There was a noise concern on my wife's car, and it's all explained. I'll just put it in this bottom corner here and let you guys take a look at that. So have a nice night, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow.